All right, so I've made a video on this Ben Shapiro clip. This actually recirculated massively. I think a tweet with like almost 80,000 favorites and like 12,000 retweets on Twitter shared this out again because of how dumb it was. And I don't know if I really did justice to bringing it to your attention. Uh, I feel like I did that better with his comment where he said that climate change was basically something that's being propagated by economic Marxists. And so I felt like I did a better job of letting you know that he said something that dumb. This time, I don't think I did that. So basically, there's some dumb video called like Ben Shapiro destroys climate change or something like that. I forgot what it was. By the way, I think the person to like first find this clip was a guy on YouTube called like the Million Man Movement or something like that. I don't know anything about his other videos, but I did want to give him a little ups there because I think he was the one to really find this clip. But basically, he's in the midst of doing one of those destructions of some idea where he's sitting there and the person can't even ask a follow up, and that's essentially what he's doing. He was asked about climate change. Now, this is going to be really hilarious. So you're going to see him saying a slew of dumb stuff, but then he's going to say possibly the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, which is that, if climate change is true and water levels are going to rise and it's going to have houses underwater, well, it's not a problem because those people are going to sell their houses and move. Check it out.
So here's my take on the climate change issue. On the climate change issue, I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert in reading the studies. I do know that certain aspects that have been widely talked about have been debunked. The idea that the Arctic ice is disappearing is nonsense. The idea that the hockey stick graph is anything remotely resembling reality. The hockey stick graph shows over the last century, and it's too short a period of time to do climate change statistics like this. It shows over the last century and a half, that the climate, along with carbon emissions, go like that it's a hockey stick. The problem is that's falsified data. There have been multiple problems with the measurement data as far as global warming. That's why they call it climate change now and not global warming, because the Earth basically has not been warming for the last 15 years or so. All of which is to say, if you could come up with a solution that did not hurt millions of people and plunge us back into the 1850s, then maybe we could talk about it. The problem is that nobody, even on the left, people who are the biggest anthropogenic climate change advocates, cannot tell you what we are supposed to do to stop climate change. Everything they're talking about is at the very least trimming around the edges. So if climate change is based on carbon emissions, and carbon emissions have caused all this damage, then you need to dramatically scale back carbon emissions to the point that basically you stop driving cars, that you stop having coal emissions that power all of the energy in the country. Green energy is the biggest boondoggle that ever was. Solar energy is providing less than 4% of the nation's energy at this point, and we've invested billions and billions and billions of dollars into it. So until we come up with something nearly as efficient, we're going to have to make a choice. Either we're going to have to let the market come up with something as efficient as carbon-based energy, which is going to take a little while, or we are going to, if you take this problem as seriously as the left purports to take it, or you are going to have to plunge people into living standards of the third world. And by the way, even if you do that, I promise you, China's not going to stop developing its carbon emissions. The reality is that all the developing countries, environmentalism is a luxury of the rich. That's the truth. When you're in China, when you're in the third world, you don't give a damn. When you're in the third world, all you want to make sure of is that your kid doesn't die tonight. And if that means that you're lighting cow chips on fire, which is what they actually do for warmth in huge swaths of the world, and that causes significant emissions, significant carbon emissions, then you'll do it. Because, hey, if it's my kid or the temperature rises by 0.0000000000000000001 degrees Celsius.
Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his power level? It's over.
Over the next century because I lit this fire. Fine, I don't care. And by the way, this idea that the climate has ever stopped changing is ridiculous. If there were climate change, the entire heartland of the country would become 3 times as productive in terms of crop productivity. The climate change has always been occurring, which is why Pangea. It's why the climate across the Earth has changed radically across time. There have been ice ages and there have been non-ice ages. There have been global warming periods and global cooling periods. In fact, global warming periods historically have been significantly better to humans than global cooling periods. Global cooling periods have been significantly damaging to the human population. So, right, so a couple of things. One, the subset of climate scientists is not all that large, so I really don't care what a doctor in biology has to say about climate change. He knows as much as I do. So it depends on what they have a doctorate in. right? So you're right. There are a lot of climate scientists and climatologists who have said that global warming is an absolute fact, and anthropogenic global warming is an absolute fact. They have very different measurements as to how large that effect is going to be. There is a broad range among climatologists, as far as I can tell, among how much the climate is going to actually change and what is the direct impact of carbon emissions on that, given the fact that for the last 15 years there has been no global warming. The single largest study of global warming that was done in Britain, it turned out a lot of the data was actually kind of falsified. So I'm not saying that it's not happening. It may be happening. I'm happy to say that it may be happening. I may even be happy to say that it's probably happening. But again, unless you have a solution to the problem that does not involve killing off millions of human beings, no, but this is I agree. But the problem is that if you're going to make, this is another issue where the demonization is significantly more important to the left than actually solving the problem. Right? So everything that the left says about climate change is basically, you're a climate change denier, therefore you're a fool. Right? As opposed to, okay, maybe you're wrong about climate change denial, but here's the solution that you're ignoring. Where's the solution that's being ignored? Right? I'm sorry, it's not Holocaust denial. The use of the language denier is pretty ridiculous on its face, considering that 30 years ago they were claiming there was going to be a grand ice age that was going to freeze us all to death. So, I'm willing to wait for the evidence to come in, especially given the fact that we don't have a good solution for it at this point. Once there's a plausible solution that the left actually wants to propose, we can talk about costs and benefits of it. But I also have to understand what exactly is the real imminent threat to human life. I mean, the idea that the gradual rise of sea levels is going to kill hundreds of millions of people it's just fantasy. It's just fantasy. It's not going to kill. They act like the day after tomorrow is how global warming is going to be. Right? Like the giant wave is going to sweep in, and then the next morning it will freeze, and all of New York will be under ice, and Dennis Quaid and Jake Gyllenhaal will be trying to fight their way through it. That's not how global warming is going to happen. Right? Global warming is going to happen, if it does happen, the rate they say it's going to, it's supposed to happen over the course of the next 100 years. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that all of the water levels around the world rise by let's say 5 feet over the next 100 years, say 10 feet by the next 100 years, and it puts all the low-lying areas on the coast underwater. Right, which let's say all of that happens. You think that people aren't going to just sell their homes and move? It's not like it's all going to happen at once. Like there's just a big tsunami that comes and wipes out everybody. So human beings have a way of adjusting. Human beings have a way of dealing with these things. And I have more faith in human beings to deal with the crucial move from Santa Monica to the San Fernando Valley than I do in okay, we're all going to stop using our cars, burning coal, and using electricity. That seems to me a much worse solution than, okay, I'm going to have to sell my beachfront property at a discount price. By the way, that's who it's going to hit, the people with beachfront property. It's not going to hit anybody in Indiana.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of climate change denialist propaganda nonsense there that you guys see all the time from climate change deniers. People like Steven Crowder, Prager University, I should say. I got to make sure I put the quotations in. But they'll use that. They attempted to manipulate the numbers where they don't mention Greenland as an ice cap, because it doesn't fit their narrative, because there's net massive loss in terms of tons of ice sheets, so they don't mention that. Potholer did a really good video response to Steven Crowder's bullshit video, so I recommend you check that out as well. But then there's a big issue I have with Ben Shapiro on this issue, which is that he's trying to maintain two positions at the same time, if it makes sense. I just recently saw, how Ben Shapiro didn't do any debates because he's a coward. He declined to debate against Kyle Kalinske at Politicon. He had a panel thing where people would come up and ask questions to him and his panel of Daily Wire lackeys. And one of the questions was about climate change, and basically everyone else was like, I don't give a shit about climate change, or that they don't really believe it. And then Ben Shapiro was like, oh no, I actually think that there is something going on with the climate. But he's doing that just to attempt to maintain any shred of intellectual integrity he possibly can. And the reason he's doing that is because if you were to point out something like this dumb statement that you just heard him say, where he says, it's not that big of a problem because, people are just going to sell their homes and move. Duh. Super easy. Ben, how are you going to sell homes that are underwater? No one's going to buy homes that are underwater. That doesn't make any sense. So it's really hilarious that he said that. Again, this is up with, I don't know, I might have to make like a Ben Shapiro cringe compilation at this point. This is up with the whole economic Marxist nonsense, and this is up with a bunch of other stuff as well. It's really, really bad. You know, the 100% taxation debate line was one of the worst. I at one point thought that was the worst. Then I saw the economic Marxist comment, and then I saw this one. So it's you know, hitting new levels every single time. You know, it's growing. It's changing every single time I see something dumb from this guy. See something, you know, dumber, and there are videos of him supporting the invasion of articles that he wrote of Iraq. By the way, there's an article called "The Cool Kids Philosopher," which just sources a bunch of crazy shit that Ben Shapiro has said. You'll be amazed at the stuff that's in there. You'll be amazed. He was against the federal ban of cell phone usage during driving. I think he said it was like a federal government overreach or something like that. It's pretty hilarious, to say the least. But back to the point I was trying to make is he's trying to save any shred of intellectual integrity he possibly has left. And the reason for that is because if you bring up something like this, no one's going to take him seriously. People are just going to look at him as if he's a joke, because that's what he is. He's a joke. You're going to look at him and be like, oh, dude, you are insanely fucking stupid. Dude, the guy said to sell homes that are underwater and move, and that, you know, you'll just be fine for that. Now, the problem is he's faking actually believing that we should do something about the climate, because he doesn't want to do anything about the climate. He doesn't care about the climate. It doesn't matter to this guy. He doesn't care about climate change. Now, I don't even think he really believes it, to be honest with you, but he says he believes it to save any, you know, 80 bits of intellectual integrity that are left, which is basically none at this point. But it's pretty cringy, and I wanted to share this one again, because you can add this to the arsenal of insanely dumb things that Ben Shapiro has said, and you can put that up with, you know, why don't you want 100% taxes, huh, you dumb social democrat, you moron? Why don't you want 100% taxes? And then you can throw that up with climate change is just an ideology perpetuated by economic Marxists. And you can also throw in that he said that the DSM basically pulled out being gay from their mental disorder list because of social pressure, not for scientific reasons, but rather social pressure. So that's implying that should still be on there. So, oh man, it's a really cringy list. And I'm telling you, if you go to read the Cool Kids Philosopher article, it's going to get a lot worse. It's going to get a lot worse. So I really recommend you read that, whether it be things on George Zimmerman. There's an article where he makes fun of black names. It's pretty cringy, to be honest with you. But yeah, Ben Shapiro not doing himself any favors here. This is quite possibly the dumbest statement I've ever heard in my entire life.